Hey everyone, welcome back to the Let's Talk Teaching podcast with Kayla Durkin. I'm your host, Kayla Durkin, face of North Dakota Teaching on Instagram, and we are still working our way through this math series. Today we have a guest who is going to be telling you all about how to create a math community in your classroom, and this is something I think you should be really excited about. Again, of course, this is a math series, but the tips that we are going to hear today are tips that you could use in any subject, anything that you are teaching. I know this is going to be relatable to you. So I'm really excited to bring this guest on. And of course, I just want to remind you before we get into the episode, if you haven't done so already, please leave a review, please leave a comment, please share this on social media. We want to help as many teachers as we possibly can. And so if this is something that you are benefiting from, make sure you let us know in the comments, make sure you leave us a review, make sure you tag us on Instagram. We want to know that you're listening. So thank you again, and let's bring out our guest. Hey, Mona, how are you?
Hi, Kayla. It's so good to see you. I'm in Chicago and it is a total blizzard here right now. And I thought all of our snow had melted earlier this week, and I was like, we're out of winter, but it's still winter here.
6 more weeks. That's what the groundhog said, right?
I know.
Well, thank you so much for being here. For those of you who don't know, this is Mona. She is Hello Mona Math on Instagram. So if you know of her, you can kind of visualize what she's all about while we go through this. But why don't you just take a little bit of time to tell us about you, your teaching background, anything you think we should know?
Yeah, so I'm Mona, as my Instagram and website say, Mona Math. But I am a teacher in Chicago Public Schools for the last 14 years. I've been in the classroom. This year I am teaching third grade. And I've taught everything from first to sixth grade, everything from multi-age classrooms to single, grade classrooms. And I even spent a couple years doing middle school social studies and middle school math. So I've taught all the things, and I really truly am back in my favorite grade of third grade. I just feel like they're the perfect mix of still like little kids and love their teacher, but like old enough to get a joke. So I really love that age group. But let's see. It was a couple of years ago when this whole thing started, 2020. I had a baby, and I just feel like with all the things that were going on in the world, it really made me kind of think like, what is it that I want out of this life, out of this world? What can I do to impact change? And that was when I really discovered that like I wanted to take what was working in my classroom and help bring that to a greater audience, like more kids, more teachers, and just help teachers make their classrooms places that were safe and welcoming for kids to really like love and understand math deeply. And I know, Kayla, you like totally relate to the math part, but I wasn't a math lover basically all of my life until like um just like maybe 10 years ago. So like 4 or 5 years into my teaching career, I learned about an approach to teaching math, kind of a newer thing back then. Um, and it was called cognitively guided instruction. It is called cognitively guided instruction. And it's just one research study and one approach to helping students solve problems. But that really opened my eyes to like this idea that we can totally transform like math classrooms into places that are student centered, and the instruction focuses on students thinking versus it just being like a sit in your seat and get the steps and do the things, which is what actually made me hate math growing up. Was like, I can't be creative in math. I can't talk in math. I just have to like do what that lady says to do. And I don't like being told what to do. I like to make my own way. So really, this all kind of started on like I said, in 2020, just trying to bring these student-centered practices that have been so successful for me and my students to teachers and students everywhere.
I
So
love that.
that's
I
why I'm
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
I love that it kind of blossomed in 2020. I think that's where a lot of people really started to sit down and think about, okay, what do I want out of this life? And same thing with me. My business really started going in 2020 as well. So we're kind of going through the same journey. But I do have a couple questions as we break apart everything you just shared. First things first, do you teach all of the subjects or do you just teach math to third graders?
I teach everything. Yep.
Okay.
I am
Okay.
a self-contained teacher for 21 students this year. Pretty small class this year.
Okay, that is like a perfect number actually, because you can break them into groups of threes. That's so awesome.
Right? I know groups of threes, one group of three, the rest partners. It works well. And it's a great group of kids. Yeah.
That's so awesome. Okay, so you said you didn't really like math growing up, and yeah, I am the complete opposite. I was the kid. This is so funny, but I was the kid at the book fair that I only ever bought math books at the book fair, like so I could practice math problems in my spare time. And I think the reason why I gravitated more towards math was because for me, I actually read a lot. I did read a lot, but I struggled with like phonics, phonemes, graphemes, all of that stuff. I'm actually going through letters right now. And even still to this day, I'm like, I just don't even get this. Whereas in math, it's like you're always going to get to an answer. And there's no question if the answer works because you can plug it right back in and find out. So I like how we kind of have similar journeys in that where we are right now. But when we look back on where we were growing up, completely opposite. So today you're talking about creating a math community in your classroom and give us the lowdown. What even is that? What does that mean?
Yeah. So I think you bring up such a good point of like, there are all different kinds of math people, right? You can like math for so many reasons. My husband has a physics degree and he does math all the time on this chalkboard wall I have for our kids in our kitchen. And it's always things that I'm like, that's not math. He's like, yes, it is. So, that's just the beauty about it is that, we have all different kinds of readers, right? And people can read all different kinds of things and be a reader. That same is true about math. Like a math person isn't one kind of person. In fact, we know no person is a math person. Everybody's a math person. However, building a community in our classrooms for embracing all those kids and all the math people that come into our classroom is so important to help everyone feel like they belong, like they're safe to take the risks that are needed to be good at math, right? Like you can't be good at math if you are only stuck on one way of doing things. Like you
Mhm.
just can't. Like, and you have to be able to, take those risks, make mistakes, try again, share your thinking. When Common Core came out years and years ago, we got these standards for math. Oh my gosh, can I talk? Standards for mathematical practice. And they have been like kind of a really great guiding light for forming your math community, right? We are working on one right now of make sense of problems and persevere in solving them. And I think that's such a good math practice standard to start with because it helps your students think about math problems as something that aren't just a start here, end here, but we might have, a winding path to get to that one answer. Okay, all of this to say, you got to have a math community. And what I mean by that is it has to be safe where everybody feels comfortable persevering to solve problems by making those mistakes. And some of the things that I talk about with what makes up a math community are the same things that you probably already do when you make a reading community or a community of writers, which is you form relationships with your students. You get to know them as mathematicians. You find out how they felt about math in the past, what's worked for them, what hasn't worked for them, what they like, what they don't like in math specifically. And, you do all the things that you need to do to make that community predictable and routine. I always like to talk about routines in communities because part of safety is knowing what to expect. And so having norms or rules that kind of dictate how you're going to behave in that community, what you can expect from your classmates and from your teachers on what's going to happen in that community. One that I think is really popular right now is that whole idea of like mistakes are proof you're trying, or you can have a twist on like mistakes are proof you're learning,
Mhm.
right? And so really breaking that down with your students of like, okay, what's it going to feel like when we make mistakes? What's it going to look like when we make mistakes? Are we going to like yell and scream and, crumple up our paper and like stomp to the trash can and throw it out? Like that totally happened in my classroom the first few years I was teaching. Um, but now I know that might happen. And so we talk about that beforehand, and we talk about that. We kind of maintain those norms throughout our year. So this is so funny because this happened today. We had a really challenging math task to do today, and my students were stumped and they were not persevering and they were not even trying. And actually, as I was walking around and conferencing with kids, I saw some kids, two different kids wrote on their paper, "This is too hard. I can't do this." And I was like, boom. Sometimes when I'm walking around, I'm pulling kids' examples of their math thinking to share up on the board, right? So we can discuss it. Today, I was pulling examples of people who persevered and people who did it. And that was our lesson today, because that is just as much of an important skill as the math content of dividing, that 3-digit number. We had to work on the social emotional, the community part first before we could get to the content.
Absolutely. And that is a huge part of teaching, is first working through the life skill and then actually getting to what you need to teach them. As a math teacher, I used this when I taught fourth grade. I used it when I taught 10th grade, but I always told my students, like, we are working through productive struggle right now. Like, we are going to get to where we need to go, but we have to be productive in our struggle. If we just sit back, if we just let things happen as they're going to happen, we're not going to get to where we need to go. So I love how you are forming that inside of your classroom, how you are setting those norms. So I would love to know, at the beginning of the year, when you are really establishing this in your classroom with your new group of kiddos, what do you create these norms together? Is this a little math community math chat that you have? How do you do this?
Yeah, I think norm creation is one of those things that has to happen at the beginning of the year. Kids have to have a voice in it. And one of the things I like to do is I like to just throw it out to them and be like, what's your most ideal math class? Like, what should happen? And they're like, especially the middle schoolers, when I taught them, they were like, no homework. We should be able to sit where we want. We should get to talk whenever we want, all these things. And I'm like, and I chart it all up like earnestly, like I'm really with them in it. I'm hearing them out. And then I'm like, I look at the chart and I'm like, I think we can do all of this stuff. And they're like, what? Are you serious? It's like, yeah, as long, within reason. And obviously, if they say something outlandish, I don't put it on the chart, or I like help them tweak it. But okay, you don't want homework? Then like, let's rethink what homework can be. And let's talk about maybe why we might need homework. And you want to sit where you want? Cool. We can work with that. Let's talk about what we're going to need to do and need to like have in place in order to sit where we want. Now, that's like really like far out there for, kind of maybe comfort level of some folks. But I think that conversation can go the same way, where you have in your mind what you want them to say going into that open-ended conversation, right?
Mhm.
You want them to say that they aren't going to laugh at people when they make mistakes. You want them to say that they're going to listen carefully to other people and their perspectives, all the things that you want. And I really encourage you to, like, before you have this conversation, envision what you want your class to look like, sound like, and feel like. And then think about what are the norms that you need in place to make that happen? And go into that conversation with those in your mind. And you can ask, some questions to get kids there, right? And if they're not getting there, do a turn in talk and then lean into those turn in talks and ask some more prompts to
Mhm.
get them there. But yeah, I think really having students' voice as part of the norm creation. And then I'm all about breaking down those norms, as I've already said a few times, thinking about what each norm looks like, sounds like, and feels like. And like you mentioned, productive struggle, huge one. I also love the norm of like, we do slow math here because you have that kid in your classroom that's like, I'm done. I'm done. What's my prize? Right? They're like, they want you to tell them good job for being the first one. And I want to normalize, we do slow math. We do
Mhm.
slow math here. That's what we value. And here's what that looks like. And here's what that feels like. When you're done, you got to push yourself to try a different way or to add more, or to re-look back at it, so really making sure students know how to live out those norms. And then
Yeah.
as months go by and problems come up, you got to have those norms on your wall so you can be like, hey, wait a minute. Like my example today, we didn't try. Like we gave up. We gave up too early. You guys, our norm is that we're going to grapple. When things get hard, we grapple. And we didn't do that today. So let's go back. What's that feel like? What's that sound like? What do we do when we get stuck? And part of that maintenance is part of, making sure that you nurture your classroom community.
Yeah, I mean, I love that because you just answered my next question. I was going to say that I truly believe students will rise to the level of expectation that you set
Mhm.
for them. And so I was going to ask you how you hold students accountable. And I think that is a perfect example of posting those norms in the room. That way, whenever students are not following whatever the norm is, you can refer back to it. It is right there for them. You can say, hey, you know what? We already agreed upon this. So what this is what we have to do next. So I know we all have students in our room that, just because we say something doesn't mean it's going to listen. So, do you have any tips or tricks for those really tough kiddos that just need that extra love, that extra push, that extra bit of encouragement?
Mhm. I think two things are routines and relationships. And
Mhm.
so those students who, come in every day and push the limits, is they need to know that it's not going to change, right? Like we are doing our math warm up every day. You come in, you sit down, you get it out, you get started, and we're going to talk and you got to participate. And again, like you said, the more we use our norms in all different kinds of scenarios and all different conversations, the more that they believe it, right? So, too often, I think, especially in situations that stress us out, we we forget all the work we already did. Like, okay, but we already have all the answers because you already did all that work. So refer back to those norms in those tough conversations, like you just said, of like, hey, you're calling out. We don't do that. We said that right here, and keep it routine. The more clear it is, the more, your students know what to expect, the more you can remind them this is exactly how it goes every day. It's a safe place here. You're going to do the same thing every day. Um, but also number two is like relationships. You can hold students to high expectations when they know that they are loved and that they are cared for and they are truly seen and known. And you do that by getting to know the kid as a person and getting to just like, have that informal relationship with them, which is so key, to getting them to work hard for you, to being able to push their thinking and push them beyond the limits that they even like, that I just feel like there's so many kids that I'm like, when I think about this, I'm like, because I knew him from when I had his brother, right? Or because I knew him by seeing him in the hallway and saying, hey, you know what? I see you're like quiet in the line. Good work. Uh, And they're not even my students. They see me and they're like, oh, okay, I know Miss Eel. Like, she's gonna hold me accountable even when I'm not in her class. So when they come into my class, we already have that relationship started. And then we got to just keep building that once they're there. Um, but yeah, sorry, my dog is in the background.
No, that is real life for everyone who is listening. It's late. Mona and I have both worked all day. It is late. This is real life. But I have to add one more thing to that, Mona. You put in our notes here today. Don't settle. Don't do it for them. Don't make it easier.
Mhm.
Don't rescue them. What do you have to say about that? How can you continue that with the listeners here?
Oh my gosh, yes. When you hold kids to high expectations, like the thing is like they can do it. And they know when you believe that they can. And they just know. They know the teachers that believe that they can't and that they will do it for them or ask them questions that give them the answer, right? Um, and I know it is really hard because as teachers, a lot of times what we were even taught in college was to make things easier for kids, to come in and rescue them.
Hmm.
And we even like I think when we reflect on our own schooling, that's what a lot of our teachers did for us. But when we say, no, 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 you can do this. And oftentimes those students that are pushing the boundaries or are, misbehaving, as you will, or not meeting the expectations, they are the ones who are really trying to get you to show them that you don't mean what you say.
Hmm.
Right. And it's like, no, I'm not lowering the expectation for you. The bar is here, and I'm going to do what I can to support you to get over the bar, but I'm not lowering it for you. And we lower the bar when we make it easier for them. We lower the bar when we take the pencil from them and we just show them real quick, or we give them an easier problem, or we help them. And that's just, it's not helping them. And I know that feels bad to hear because so many of us have done that. Like legit, I do it almost every day. And I have to stop myself, you're 14, and be like, hold on, I can't do this for them. I've got to let them struggle through that problem that we did today. That was so hard. I wanted to change the number, you guys. I wanted to change the number midway through the problem and be like, this is too hard. We can do a different number. But I did it because I knew I needed to be there, cheering them on, telling them I believed in them, listening to what their thinking was, and like helping them create an experience that showed them I believed that they could do it.
That's phenomenal. I love it. I absolutely love it. So I know, I work with a lot of newer teachers, first year teachers that often listen to this podcast. So do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, I would say like outside of what we kind of already talked about, which was like build strong routines, build strong relationships, um, have high expectations. I guess like the best thing that someone ever told me as a newer teacher was talk less, listen more.
Hmm.
And it's like whoever is doing the talking or the explaining is doing the learning. And so I'm a big advocate for student voice in the classroom, and math discussions and just discussions in general are such a great student centered practice. But when you let your students talk and do the explaining, they are the one making the meaning. And so sometimes as new teachers, it feels really challenging to kind of give away our power, right? Because we just got our own classroom. And to say, like, well, now the kids can do the talking, when in our mind we thought that was going to be our job to do all of the explaining.
Hmm.
It feels hard, but I found that like honestly this approach really works to help students like both love learning and develop deep understandings of any concept that like again whoever's doing the talking is doing the learning.
Yeah, that is so good. So, if there is anyone here who is looking for a little bit more, wants to get to know you a little bit better, where can they find you? Where can they search out some of this information?
Yeah, okay. So I have a really exciting thing coming up. Totally a sneak for your listeners. We're going to dive into that standard of mathematical practice that I was talking about of making sense and persevere in solving. We're going to dive into that math practice standard in a little challenge of increasing our engagement in our math classrooms by getting our classrooms more student centered. So if your ears perked up when I was talking about getting kids talking and kind of giving away some of your control and making those student centered practices come alive in your classroom, this is a totally free challenge. I'm going to walk you through step by step how to start your classroom community, how to launch a task, get kids talking about it, all while teaching them to make sense of problems and persevere. So I would love for you to join us. You can go to monamath.com/challenge and you can sign up. So that's really exciting. And then, if you're, oh, wait, I should tell you that starts on March 27th. But if you need it now, because I'm that person, I'm like, yeah, that's in 2 weeks. I need something right now. Go and download the 5 kind of secrets to a student-centered math classroom. It's my ebook. It's monamath.com/student. And that will give you kind of 5 steps to get you on your way.
Yeah, and I do just want to encourage all of you as well. I know this is a math series. I know we're talking all about math today, but I think anyone could agree that a lot of the things we talked about really relate to any content area. So even if you don't teach math and this kind of just perked your interest, I encourage you to still take a minute to grab those 5 secrets and also think about joining that challenge. I mean, there's just so many good things that we can take away, especially when we are in a situation where we can learn and grow from other teachers. There's just so much in this new world of Instagram that everyone is sharing. And so take some time, go through what Mona has to offer you. I do not think you would regret it. And if you have absolutely loved what you heard today and you're like, I just need to listen to Mona every single day of my life, lucky for you, Mona has a podcast too. So Mona, tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, I am a total verbal processor. I could talk for hours. I am definitely the kid who got talked too much on every single report card from K to college. Girl, it was me. So blogging's cool, but podcasts are even better. So you can come and hang out with me. Honest math chat is what it's called because that's another part of me. I just keep it real. So yeah, I release a new episode every Monday, and I'd love for you to come hang out with that. I have done a whole podcast on norms and classroom community, so you can go check those out now. Of course, I don't have the episode number, but there's only like 20 episodes so far. It's a baby podcast, so you'll be able to find them real easy. But yeah, it's anywhere you listen to Kayla's podcast here, you can find mine.
Small but mighty, Mona. 20 is a huge feat. There are so many people who would love to have a podcast and they have 0 episodes. So 20 is pretty big.
Thank you, Kayla. Thank you. I need that. I need that encouragement to keep going, right? I love it.
Well, once again, thank you so much for being here. You can find Mona at Hello Mona Math on Instagram. Be sure to go over, say hey, watch some of her reels, look at some of the posts that she's been posting. She often shares in her stories the problem of the day. So if you're wondering what are these hard problems that these students are struggling with, look at her stories and you'll be able to get a really good idea. So Mona, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. This has been so awesome.
Yes, thanks so much, Kayla.
If you're still here, I just wanted to remind you that we would absolutely love if you would drop down below, leave us a review. We want to show other people how great this series is and invite them to listen to our podcast as well. We still have a few more episodes left in our math series, so I hope you really are loving them. I know that there are so many good things that these teachers are sharing, and they're so applicable to all classrooms. So I hope you're enjoying it. Thanks so much, and I will see you next time.